I get this question all the time. Sean, should I stay or should I go? And typically, this is a question that's asked off the latest argument, the last blow up. And there has to be so much more that we take into consideration before we make a definitive decision on whether or not we should leave or stay in a relationship. And so I'm going to give you not just four things to look for to determine whether you should stay or leave, but a picture at the end that could easily help us determine and apply where it fits for the relationship you're in on what decision you should make that best fits for you and your future. Okay. And the first thing that we want to be able to reiterate in this video, all right, is character. Okay. The character, not just of the person, but of the relationship. Okay. This is really, really big and a big distinction because even though we can identify that the character of the person, may or may not be something that suffice, all right, there is a character that is cultivated in the relationship that we have to be honest, we've played a role in creating. Whether that character is a positive one or a not so positive one and a real negative one. Okay, down in the depths, the difference between the couple that everybody wishes to be and the couple that posts on social media and everybody knows, behind the scenes when the phone's put down, you guys can't stand each other on the same page and it's the worst place ever, right? A character that is developed that definitely isn't happening overnight and something that we both contribute to, whether we allowed some things, we never spoke up, or we demanded some things. It became very conditional, very, very nasty, rude, disrespectful. And so we have to be able to ask ourselves, all right, regarding the character piece, all right, this one simple question. What happens when reality changes their self image? This is really good. What happens when reality changes their self image? Okay. And you're going to see this on the screen. Okay, kind of writing a little wild. But this is a really good question, right? Because ultimately, reality, life be life, and things happen. Okay. Or maybe there's some conversations, some disagreements, things not being said eye to eye. And honesty has a way of coming into the room. Okay. Honesty has a way of barging into the room. And honesty demands the attention of everybody there. Okay. If there's one thing that can't go away is truth. The best thing you could do is cover it up, but that doesn't mean it's not there. Okay. Truth is truth and it's going to hold and take up space wherever it goes. And so what we learn a lot about relationships and people that we're in is how do we handle the truth? How do we deal with truth as it shows up? Okay. And one thing that we have to be honest in answering these questions, okay, is not necessarily looking at this in the lens of, well, they don't, they never, they always, it's them, them, them. I also want you to take a look at yourself. Okay. What is the character and tone that you've set for the character, not just of yourself, but of this relationship? How you're responding, how you are handling those moments where truth is said. Okay. Even in moments where you don't think the person that you're with is speaking accurately and truthfully to a situation. Okay. Is there a sliver? Is there a percentage where, man, I really want to understand how they got there and I want to be able to see it, even if I don't agree with it? And sometimes when we make decisions like, should I stay or should I go? It's off of reaction. It's off of recency bias. It's off of a bad moment that makes us second guess the entirety of the relationship instead of a pattern that we've seen consistently throughout the duration of the connection. So you have to ask yourself, what happens when reality changes their self-image? Okay, reality that barge in, truth sets in. Maybe it's the business, it's the health. Okay, something that was said that was very, very true to who they're being or who they're acting, how they're acting, their behaviors. Okay, and sometimes that reality can deal and challenge their self-image, how they view about themselves, what they view about them, and sometimes it doesn't come into full agreement. How do they deal with that? Do they become completely negligent? Do they become completely dismissive? Do they lack the ability to acknowledge those things, even if it doesn't match who they feel they are? Is this somebody that you feel you can tell the truth to? And it doesn't have to become a constant attack, but something that is able to be developed. Now, hear me. Okay. This is coach. This is you, just me and you talking. Okay. Just your coach here. All right. There are some times where when it comes into being a personal attack, it's not to say that that person isn't willing to work on it. Okay. This is just still new to them, like it's new to you. And maybe it's not necessarily about their inability or lack of capacity to deal with these things. They just don't know how. And so this is where a lot of grace comes in, a lot of understanding comes in, but we do have to ask these questions from an objective lens based on the patterns we've seen. what really fits. Okay. And we're looking for the character of the person, and then think of the character of the relationship that you've developed. Okay. And what role have you participated in creating the character that is there in the relationship as a whole? Okay. Which then leads us to number two. Okay. Once we answer the character question, we've got to answer the other C. Okay. And there's four C's, by the way, just to keep this in a nice tight ball. Okay. We have to answer the question of consistency. Okay. And when it comes to consistency, the question we're asking here is what behavior repeats? Okay. What behavior repeats when nobody is scared of losing the relationship? Okay. What behavior repeats when nobody is scared of losing the relationship? Okay. And this is really, really key because we're basically asking this question from a place of abundance and not scarcity, right? Because anytime that we're making a decision from a place of scarcity, lack, uncertainty, oftentimes those decisions don't necessarily come out to be the greatest thing. And that's when we make decisions that we later regret because we were in our own heads. We were not willing to wait. We were not willing to let things play out. So we're asking this question from a lens of abundance instead of a lens of lack. Lens of abundance, we're thinking fullness. Okay. Right. It's like, man, I don't need this relationship to go the distance for my value to be substantial. Right. For me to be okay, for me to be at peace. May I cry? Sure. May I be sad? Yeah. But I don't need this to be what I maybe social media convinces me based on my status, where I'm at in life, my age, what's available for me that I just need to cling on to. Like, no, I'm cool. Like, truth be told, will it be sad? Sure, but I'll be okay. This is the lens of abundance that we're really wanting to look for. And you're going to pay attention to the behaviors that are repeated. Okay. Now, when you're observing this from yourself first, before you look at your partner and what your partner isn't doing, because remember, we got to look at ourselves first. We can't just make this all about them and what they're not doing, because there's a role that we're playing in this relationship too. And we want to be sure that all grounds are covered. Even in the event that we feel we're 99% sure we're not the problem, let's leave that 1% open to be curious. Okay. So behaviors that repeat when nobody is scared of losing a relationship, we're talking about behaviors, but we're talking about natural behaviors. Okay. These are natural behaviors. Okay. All right. Behaviors, that are done that doesn't really involve a level of provoking. Okay. Not to say that we can't be challenged, not to say that you can't bring something up, right? And then look for the behavior naturally occur over time. That's all a part of relationships. We have to communicate those things. But we're just talking about behaviors that just happen, and they happen repetitively. And we know when we make decisions when fear isn't involved, because like there's no cost to the win. Like there's no second guessing, right? There's not a lot of second guessing. There's not a lot of fear tactics, walking on eggshells, all those kind of things. We're just pretty open about it. Okay. Because when there's no fear present, you know that, hey, all is going to be okay, whether it fails or it succeeds. Okay. And so we're just paying attention to those. It's natural. It's not provoking. Okay. Maybe you'll say it's not hesitant. Okay. So there's a lack of hesitancy in some of those behaviors. Okay. Obviously, these are repetitive, not just one off. Okay. So maybe some of these behaviors are, whether this person is communicating healthily and consistently, or, this behavior where you have them for 2 weeks and they're gone for 4. And then they just show up randomly back. It's a long distance relationship and they're like, hey, stranger. Right. Okay. When someone's not afraid of losing the relationship, there's things that they're willing to do because they know deep down that this isn't going anywhere. Okay. Just like you're willing, to take a jump up and down on the floor that you're on, or wherever you're standing currently or sitting currently. Right. Like you aren't as afraid of the consequences because you know you can handle the fall, right? In the event that you take a jump and you don't necessarily land. Okay. When you take a seat in a chair that you have around. Okay. Like that's a behavior that you take confidently. You plop in the seat, you just fall in the seat, right? Because you're not really afraid in the event that the seat gives way. because the fall isn't that hard, or gravity's gonna do what gravity does. You trust that chair to hold your weight, so you don't really even think twice about it. This is a seat. It looks available. I'm gonna take it. Okay. Those are the type of things that we're looking for. So again, repetitive behaviors. Think about communication. Think about the behaviors that are done in public and private. Think about behaviors when it comes to daily interactions. Okay. Pay attention to the things that you feel you have to consistently and constantly ask for, but you're not seeing change in. Okay. There's a difference between asking and communicating for something which is a normal relationship experience, and then asking for it time and time again. This person continuously is making the same decisions to hurt you repetitively. It's been years on end, it's been months on end, and there's no sign of them recovering or wanting to do better. It's just more words, less actions. Okay. We want to pay attention to that because that is something that's consistent. Okay. Even if it means they're consistently inconsistent, we're getting the data. So repetitive behaviors, think of hesitant behaviors that don't require hesitancy, that don't require provoking, natural. Okay. And we're looking through this through the lens of abundance, not lack. Okay. We want to be able to make this decision from a place of fullness. What are they consistent in? What behaviors are they consistent in? Okay. This is going to be really good. Okay. Number three, outside of consistency and outside of character, okay, we have compatibility. Okay. Now, this is not going into the conversation of sexual compatibility and, are we sexually compatible and all those other kind of things. Okay. We're talking about compatibility. We're talking about alignment and availability to build the life you want. Okay. So we're talking about things like character, something a little bit like we talked earlier. Okay. When we're talking about compatibility, we're talking about alignment and availability. I spelled availability wrong, but y'all get it. There you go. All right. Availability to build the life you want. Okay. And so we've talked about compatibility on this channel before. Okay, but the question that you really want to ask and answer regarding compatibility is the following: are the lives you genuinely want compatible? This is the question. Are the lives you genuinely want compatible? Okay. Is it compatible? Does it align? Does it make sense? Okay. Does the life you want to live, okay, convince or make someone else or the person that you're connected with give up what they want and what they want to do with their lives in order to be with you? Okay. Vice versa. Do you have to give up certain things that you have your heart set on, you want to build, you want to do, you want to accomplish? Do you feel like you have to put that on the back burner? Do you feel like you have to throw that away in order to be with this person? Okay. Because in the event that that isn't, that's not something that actually creates alignment. It's what creates resentment. And a lot of times when people are quick to say, are we compatible? They're typically going off of an argument or some disagreements, or sometimes it's just running out of ideas on how to serve your partner, how to love your partner. And that's not necessarily what measures compatibility. What measures compatibility is, hey, this is the life that I see myself living. This is the alignment that I need to be in order to create that life. And do you fit? Right? Are you able to not just support it, but is there ways that I'm able to support where you're going and what you want to do too, without us having to sacrifice those things to come together to be together? There's some things that God's put on your heart. There's some things that God wants to do through your life that, if you got with somebody who doesn't support those kind of things, it would be hard to be with them. It's the same way here. Right. And so the lives that you really want, how do we know this? Well, what is the life you want? What do you envision in your relationships? Do you envision being married? Do you envision having kids? Do you envision, owning land? Do you envision having a farm? And does the partner or person you're with, do they envision those same things? Do they want that? Are they against that? Do they desire that? Does what they want sometimes get in the way of that? Because, they would prefer to live in the city, right? And they don't want marriage and they don't want any more kids. Well, it seems like the life there is incompatible, right? Because they don't have perhaps the capacity, the room, Okay, when we're talking about compatibility, we're also talking about character. We're talking about emotional maturity. Okay, do they have the ability to apologize? Do they have the ability to repair? Do they have the ability and capability of wanting to work through hard things? Or is it, every hard decision or hard, experience that they run into, they're ready to bail? Okay. They don't want to really sit there and engage and work through things. All right. That shows that there's some differences in the compatibility that we want to be aware of before we just throw in the towel. Okay. So are the lives you genuinely want compatible? Okay. The second question regarding actual compatibility, or not compatibility, but consistency, okay, is what behaviors repeat when nobody is scared of losing the relationship? Okay. So we're looking for repetitive behaviors. What are they doing? Okay. Then we have character. Okay. What happens when reality changes their self image? Okay. What's present? How do they respond? Okay. How do they show up in low moments? How do they show up in seasons where things are challenging and difficult? Are they still the same person, or do you have to worry about getting hit on? Do you have to worry about them crashing out? Do you have to worry about them, being extremely disrespectful and distasteful with their verbiage, with their words? And they're going to look to cut deep. Okay. Because really, when we talk about character, we're looking for a lane of consistency, much like what we're talking about here. Okay. Which leads us to the fourth thing, which is their willingness and ability to repair. Okay. And you see how all these things go in one to another. Okay. But we're simply asking, when it comes to repair, all right, can this person actually learn and grow without creating more harm? I promise y'all this is not Hebrew, but I hope you get it. Can this person learn and grow without creating more harm? Okay. In other words, can harm actually become learning? Can we actually take this moment to learn where we both are, use it as a mirror, as a place of feedback, and look to race to a hug, to reconnect, to unpack things? This doesn't mean that we have to have the same communication styles, the same attachment styles. But when we're talking about building a sense of security, we're not expecting perfection. We're expecting what? Progression, and grow without causing more harm, right? Without causing more harm to each other where we are or where we're trying to go. All right. And it's not about being perfect. It's not about staying at this place where there's no issues, there's no arguments. No, it's just we trust our ability to recover in the event that an argument happens. Okay. We reconnect, we come together, we're reaching an understanding, and we're moving forward. Okay. And when there's repair, compatibility, there's consistency, and there's a healthy character, chances are that what you're ready to leave isn't because it's a bad situation. What you're ready to leave is the uncomfortability these disagreements and disconnections are exposing in you. And that is something that we have to be honest about, because there's a lot of you, perhaps, who are watching this. Maybe this doesn't fit the whole crowd, but there's quite a few people who are ready to leave something because it's calling you up to healthier, higher spiritual maturity. And you just don't want that. You want to stay in your low levels and your comfortability instead of actually being in a situation that is challenging you and actually helping you grow if you actually look at what's being experienced as a mirror instead of looking at them as the blame. Okay. And to really wrap all this up, all right, is like a nice little analogy. Okay. That actually kind of leads to three other things that you want to pay attention to, kind of like, part one, part two, and part three. And this is really important because, you know, part of this question that's being asked oftentimes, I like to put into an analogy and a picture to make sense. If you've ever been on a plane before, okay, and you've taken a trip, the flight attendants might give you some instructions on, what to look for in the event that the plane begins to hit some type of emergency, right? Obviously, they teach you how to fasten your seatbelt, how to fold your trays, put your luggage underneath your seat or in the overhead boards, right? And then it starts going over the manual, okay, when the gas masks fall, exit signs, what the signs mean when they're on and what the signs mean when they're off, right? And, typically, if you've ever been on a flight long enough or been flying long enough, you'll notice some turbulence that starts to hit. And the pilot will get on the intercom and he'll say something along the lines of, listen up, everybody, we're experiencing some early turbulence. And so, about 10, 15 minutes of this, we're getting above a storm. and we'll be well on our way to our destination, clear sunny skies, right? And so, of course, he instructs you to keep your seatbelts fastened, your trays upright. Okay, maybe if it gets bad enough, he's like, hey, put your head down, right? Arms forward up against the seat in front of you, all right? And we'll be above this in no time. And of course, you'll notice the turbulence because you feel it, okay? The plane is rattling, and then the pilot will come on the intercom again. Ladies and gentlemen, we are 5 minutes away from this turbulence, right? And so they're getting above it, and then eventually, okay, it ceases, right? You're not confused, you're not lost. He's updating you, he's communicating you through the process. You're above the turbulence, you're above the storm, and now we're on our way to our destination. Okay. And the whole point of me bringing this up to you, if you've taken flights long enough, is that what the pilot does is ultimately what we're looking for in relationships to determine whether this is something we stay with or this is something we move on from. Something I've helped plenty of clients through with that same analogy that I think could be helpful to you. Okay. Because what the pilot actually expresses is this part one, which is self awareness. Okay, and it's not by my own definition. It's a definition that I carry and borrow from Dr. Zeb, who's a phenomenal life coach in this space. And he defines self awareness as honesty about who you are, where you are, and what you're doing at any given moment. Okay, and not just honesty about yourself, but of course, as you grow in self awareness, you learn other people aren't as self aware. And as part of dealing with your relationship and the struggles and the tensions that are present, you want to be honest and say, is your partner honest? Is your partner honest about what they're experiencing, what they're seeing, what they're feeling, what they're doing, the harm it's causing? Okay. One thing about the pilot, as he's in this analogy of the plane and getting up above the clouds, he's not lying. There's a storm. He's saying what he's speaking to what he's seeing. There's a storm. We're expecting turbulence. We're getting above the clouds. He's not lying to the passengers and souls that he's entrusted to take care of that are, behind him in the plane. He's honest. And that's exactly what we're looking for. Okay. Honesty. Are you being honest? Okay. And is your partner honest about their struggles, about their tensions, about their issues, about the things that they're working through inwardly that maybe they haven't seen till now that are causing harm to you, to the relationship? Are they honest about where their role is in cultivating said experience? Okay. Can't help an addict when they're first not honest about what they're addicted to, right? It's the same similar formula here, which then leads us to the part two, because the same thing that we noticed in that analogy is that the co-pilot was what? He was communicating. He didn't just say, hey, we were in this plane and, it's about to go down, or, dang, we're having some turbulence and, we'll figure it out. No, no, no. He had a communicative or communication plan, right? So what did this plan look like? Well, he was communicating to his passengers throughout the entirety of the turbulence, where they were, how many more minutes he estimated that was left of the turbulence, getting above the clouds, keeping his passengers informed about the process. That's the same thing that we want to apply in the relationship, okay? With the issues that they're now being honest and aware of. What is the communicative plan? Have you guys come together, sat down, and talked about what plan needs to be put in place for this to no longer be as much of an issue? Okay. Have we talked about, not just what the harm it's caused, but hey, what is the plan that we're coming together to deal with this healthily? Okay. If we're both honest about it and both seeing how detrimental it is to the relationship. Okay. Because if we have a communication plan in place, now we have something we can measure progress by. Not just guess it, not just feel it, right? Not just pray, wish, and hope. We can pray. That's a beautiful thing, but we're also addressing what we've talked about. Hey, we're going to come back to this plan that we've created together that allows us to see where we really are and how much further we have to go. Okay. So is there a communicative plan, a communication plan, which then thirdly leads to progress? Because we see in that same analogy, that pilot is giving progress. 5 minutes left, 3 minutes left, 2 minutes left. We're above and we're gone. Okay. He's giving progress updates. We have to get into a place in our relationships where we're actually engaging in progressional updates. Hey, where are we at as we're 3 months in working in through this, 6 months in working through this? Okay. And progress doesn't mean that we see 0 to 100. Drake really messed us up with that, right? We're not looking for 0 to 100. Okay. We're looking for progress where 0 turns into 1, turns into 2, turns into 3, and we're seeing a compound interest here. This is the goal, not 0 to 100. And so before you're ready to throw in the towel, because I've been honest, coach, I put the community plan together, but there's no progress. But you just told them yesterday. You just told them 30 days ago. You just like the body, the mind, the brain, when we really are making genuine changes, especially at nervous system levels, identity levels, really challenged to come out of our comfort zones, which relationships do, we got to give it some time. And there's a grace period that we give where when we see someone trying and we see someone giving genuine effort, and it may not be perfect, but we can acknowledge the attempts that they're making, y'all, that's a good place to be. Because now we're able to make changes along the way, continue to tweak, observe, pay attention. And when there's honesty, a communicative plan, and actionable progress put in place with a grace period as we're seeing these things change, I think it's good enough to say you can stay. But in the event this person isn't honest, there's no communication plan. And more importantly, there's no progress. Okay. There hasn't been not only not lack of honesty, maybe they've been honest. Maybe they did walk away with a communication plan. But not only has that not been revisited, it's been thrown away, it's been trashed, it's been forgotten about, but there has literally been no progress. And now here you are, years and years into the relationship, we have a problem. And if you can measure this according to your values and places of alignment with what you expect in your relationships, what you're ready for, what you have the capacity for, in honesty and in truth, these things are going to help you determine if it makes sense to stay or leave. I hope this was helpful. And if it was, I want you to do me a favor and go to the description, and in there you'll find a link that actually will tie you to becoming-secure.com, which is actually a place I want you to get your free relational diagnostic. Okay, just the ability to really grade your discernment, where you are in choosing healthy relationships, and then what you need to do in order to increase your ability to choose healthily. And that will be really helpful to you. Okay, so be sure to go to the description and check that out. Please be sure to subscribe, like this video, comment your biggest takeaway. How helpful was this? Share this with someone who you know could benefit from this kind of quick walkthrough. And I hope to see you in our next walkthrough conversation where we're breaking some things down, helping you build relational discernment so that you can choose and invest into relationships securely that are worth investing. And I hope to see you then. Until then, be easy and be breezy. Peace.